Kathy Drake lives with her family in Oakland, California, and she's recently retired from a 28-year career as a portfolio manager with an investment management firm in San Francisco. Today, she applies her financial training as a volunteer in the microfinance world, including Opportunity International and Youth Business America. She also keeps fairly busy with a high schooler at home, tutoring in a reading clinic at a local Oakland public school, and serving at First Presbyterian Church of Berkeley. Please welcome Kathy Drake.
I had never been to India until just over 3 weeks ago. And in spite of the beautiful clothes that I was able to bring home, I am here to tell you that India is not for the faint-hearted. Let me take you with me as I share just a few quick glimpses of my first impressions of India. India is crowded. India has people hanging off of all sorts of moving vehicles at all times of the day and night. India is colorful. There's color everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful. India, as people had told me, is a land full of contrast. Beauty from the ancient times using digital technology. Camels on the sides of the road. Motorcycles whizzing past camels, plodding past rickshaws on the side of the road. Cattle amidst the cars. One of my personal favorites, the age-old human muscle power, raw muscle power coming to the aid of failed fossil fuel technology. Centuries-old horse carts blocking the way of big, fat, spiffy tourist trucks. Tourist buses coming along the road. It is a land of contrasts, and it is also like this, fast-flowing, a little bit blurry, and to the first-time visitor, somewhat bewildering. But let me also take you a little bit further to the reason I went to see the India of opportunity. I went last month with a group of other governors and staff to Chennai, India, to see the work of Opportunity International, and in 4 days we visited 4 trust groups. We soon learned to brace ourselves against the extravagant welcome that we received each time we went to visit a trust group. We were adorned with flowers. We all got a patch of bright yellow sandalwood, men and women alike, pasted onto our forehead. We were given pinches of sugar crystals for a sweet welcome in the mouth. We were sprinkled with rose water. It was amazing. The first group we went to met in on kind of a raw, open-air cement area. And when we arrived, they had gathered up, you know, those kind of white molded plastic chairs like we have here. They had gathered up half a dozen or so from the neighborhood for us in advance of us so we would be the honored guests and sit on them. Well, Michelle Ruby, incorrigible Michelle Ruby, walked in, took her plastic chair, set it aside, and plopped right down on the cement next to a woman and her child in the trust group. And we all followed suit and quickly plopped right down on the dirty cement. Great consternation arose because we were the guests, were not seated where we were supposed to be, and so they tried to coax us back onto the chairs, and when they realized we were absolutely unmovable, everybody finally sat down. That initial interaction, though, was important. We wanted to show our heart. We wanted to be there with them. We wanted to be up, not above them or apart, and so that was an important start. I had heard of, but not really ever observed, the actual workings of a trust group, and it was very interesting. They opened their ledgers and demonstrated 100% loan-free prepayment or repayment for that week. They all stood and said a pledge by heart of 10 beautiful pledge aspects that they said they were going to work hard for their families, work hard into the community, and work hard in their businesses and support each other. They listened hard at the training module, which that particular week was how to build your client base through better customer service, and I felt like I was right back in business school. And finally, they were so proud to show us their savings book, because even though they were only in the second loan cycle, they already each had amassed more than $100, and that was huge. They were so proud of it, and we were so proud of them. And to conclude that meeting, we all stood and gathered round together to pray. And I can hardly put into words the sense of community that descended on us as we stood together. And I have to say, I was so aware at that moment of, we were all of different colors, we were of different backgrounds, different religions, different language, but we didn't need a translator at that moment, because we didn't need to understand the words each other were saying. We were listening to each other's hearts as we all prayed together to our God. Later that afternoon, we went to a different trust group, and this trust group was led by a beautiful young woman, an Opportunity International staff woman, the client relations officer named Sasikala. And Sasikala informed us when it got to the tutoring or the training part of the module of the meeting, she informed us that that day we were going to be learning about self-confidence and strength through community. And to do that, to tell her story, to tell that topic, she was going to tell a story. And so she began to tell the story of a young girl named Deepika. And Deepika was born into a poor family. Deepika, in fact, the family was so poor that Deepika was sent to live with her uncle. And she felt abandoned and crushed by this. It was difficult. When she got to her uncle's, she was further crushed because she learned that she would not be permitted to go to school, which she had hoped. And as I watched, the women in the trust group's faces grew solemn and more serious, and they nodded. And that crushed Deepika obviously was a mirror to the women there as they listened to that story. And Sasikala went on, and she explained that Deepika, when she was a teenager, was married off. And that, unfortunately for her, it became her position, her path, to be the youngest of the daughters-in-law in her new husband's family. And that meant that she was further disrespected, and that she was really treated no better than a servant. And she was crushed again and really felt downtrodden. And the faces of the women again, the nods and the faces, you could just see the empathy and the understanding that they had for this crushed Deepika. Deepika went to the market every day. Deepika met a friend. The friend took interest in her, encouraged her, drew her out, and finally encouraged her to begin her own business. And Deepika began a small business in the marketplace. Deepika began to be more successful, to take a small income home, and things began to change. Her life began to turn around. Her husband respected her. She began to understand really internally that she had self-confidence, that she could rely on herself, and her whole world began to change as she then became a friend to others. There were smiles. As I watched, the trust group had smiles. They too understood that empowerment. They understood the point of the story. And I brought you the exact words that Sasikala concluded her story with. This is a story within a story within a story. I brought the exact words from my journal. Sasikala turned and said to her group and to us, "So likewise, we are becoming strong. We have our group, we support each other. We can become transforming agents who empower others around us." And there were smiles again, and the women understood. And at that moment, I understood something surprising. In the way that we are going to want to empower and become agents of transformation in these women's lives, in such a short time, they were coming to see themselves as transforming agents. They themselves, in fact, were empowered enough, they were turning already to think of how they could give back to their community. And Sasikala's words took their vision much further than I had expected. It was a profound moment. It was a very touching moment. So thank you for listening to a few short stories.